Welcome to the channel, and in this video I wanted to talk about the Nick Cage Ghost Rider movies after rewatching them recently, and I surprisingly have a few releases of these much maligned movies, so let's get into the video. First up is the Blu-ray that was released back in 2007, and it comes with the extended cut of the film that adds about 10 extra minutes to the runtime. I wouldn't say it improves the film significantly, but you get a little more Sam Elliott, which is always a plus, and there's a few more extra scenes with young Johnny and his dad. Watching this movie this time around, it was just a bit of a drag for me. Mark Steven Johnson, the writer-director who prior to this made the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie, brings very little of a visual flair but has that same trademark melodrama that was seen in his Daredevil movie. His characters lack any real depth, and it takes almost an hour till we finally get to see Ghost Rider, and the story doesn't keep you engaged until then, and the Ghost Rider scenes don't add a whole lot to the movie. Every scene where he encounters one of Wes Bentley's lackeys, the fight just ends very quickly and abruptly. Speaking of Wes Bentley, apparently he only made this movie to feed his drug addiction. The aspects of this film that I liked were the aforementioned Sam Elliott and Nick Cage. He doesn't go full Cage in this movie, and this is far from one of his best performances, but you can see in the behind the scenes and interviews since then that he does have a real passion for this character. This Blu-ray does come with 3 featurettes on the making of the film, and in total they're just shy of 90 minutes. But there was one special feature that's missing from this Blu-ray but was on the extended cut DVD. It's a history of the character and chronicles the inception and his history all the way up until the movie. It features interviews with the creators along with other writers, artists, and the editors. Not sure why it was left off this Blu-ray, but that's why I've kept this DVD. I wish we got more stuff like this today. Maybe James Gunn will do something like this for his DC movies, because Disney sure as fuck won't. I also have the UMD of this movie, but this only contains the theatrical cut of the movie. I watched the extended cut for this video, but prior to that, maybe a year or two ago, I watched this UMD on a flight. The cover features Eva Mendes, and it's been a while since I've seen her in a movie. She didn't come back for the second movie, but she did re-team with Nick Cage in the movie Bad Lieutenant, a much better movie and one of my favorite Nick Cage films. Plus, I would say that they have better chemistry in that movie too. The back of the case does kind of spoil that there's another Ghost Rider in this movie, with Sam Elliott playing the original Ghost Rider, Carter Slade, who I think looks cooler than Johnny Blaze's Ghost Rider, but they do improve his look in the next movie, and since this is a Sony release, it does have interior artwork. Looks like something you'd see on a comic book cover. So sticking with the PSP, I have the movie tie-in game, and it's actually surprisingly pretty good. It's pretty much a clone of Devil May Cry with its hack and slash gameplay, but there's also a few driving levels which were the least favorite part of the game for me, only because I kind of suck at driving games. I'll have to fail a bunch of times till I figure out the route you're supposed to take. Also, the lack of a second analog stick doesn't help. They did release this on the PS2 as well, but I don't have that. This game is a bit of a hidden gem and was co-written by Garth Ennis and Jimmy Palmiotti. Garth Ennis, who most people will know as the creator of The Boys, and Jimmy Palmiotti has worked on a ton of stuff, and I really enjoyed his work on the character of Jonah Hex. Another cool feature in this game is that you can use the points you earn in the game to unlock classic Ghost Rider comics to read. This game is a bit of a hidden gem and worth checking out. So 5 years after the original, we got essentially a reboot and not a sequel with Spirit of Vengeance. And I actually enjoy this movie. That may be an unpopular opinion because I don't think I've ever heard anyone say anything positive about this film. Maybe it doesn't have a stronger narrative than the first movie, but more than makes up for it with its style and its new interpretation of the titular character. They nailed the look of Ghost Rider in this movie, and I just love how you can see his leather jacket boil and get all charred up. His skull is no longer just plain looking and is now black and like burnt up. They also changed his bike from a chopper to a Yamaha, and I think this version of the Hell Cycle looks a lot better too. The action is also a massive step up. Mark Neveldine and Brian Taylor, who brought us the 2 Crank movies, directed this and brought their trademark style. This was initially going to be R-rated, but Sony got cold feet and made it PG-13 instead. It was also supposed to be a new Johnny Blaze, but the directors chose to bring Nick Cage back because they were just huge fans of his and really wanted to work with him. Cage does look like he's having a bit more fun, and there's a couple scenes where he does go full Cage.
Scraping at the door! Scraping at the door!
Say what you want about him, but he's one of the most fearless actors, and he will just go for it, and I just find that very admirable. Even if that means the internet will turn whatever it is that he does into a meme. One of the things I found interesting while watching some of the bonus features and looking up interviews is that they kept mentioning just how little money they had and how little time they had to make the movie. I think maybe part of the reasoning might have been that if Sony didn't make this movie, then they would have lost the rights to the character and the rights would have reverted back to Marvel, but that's just me guessing. I still think they did a good job, and I will defend this movie as a more entertaining film over the prior one. Anyway, I got this Blu-ray from Walmart because it came with a bonus disc. The disc contains a 20-minute featurette and adds a few more interesting tidbits on the making of the film. One of them being that the stunt driver for Nadia was played by a man who not only wore her wardrobe and a wig, but for some reason they even put him in makeup as well. They also talk about how Christopher Lambert didn't want to shave his head for his role. I also liked how the cast and the crew kept referring to Christopher Lambert's role in Highlander. I thought that was pretty funny. But if I was there, I definitely would have talked about how he was rated him. I double dipped on this a few years later when I discovered there was also a Best Buy exclusive that had its own bonus disc. It also came with a 3D Blu-ray, and actually when I saw this in theaters, it was a 3D showing. I remember it being fine, but it was that period of time when studios were just post-converting their films into 3D just to make a few extra bucks off that higher ticket price. All thanks to James Cameron and Avatar making $2 billion at the box office. So like I said, I found out about this exclusive when I was on Blu-ray.com one night, and since I'm a madman and I want to have the most comprehensive edition of this movie that seemingly very little people like, the bonus disc that came packed with this release is a 20-minute featurette on the vehicles used in this film. I don't know shit about motorcycles, which is how I knew that this version of the Hell Cycle was a Yamaha. They go into detail on the designing of the bike, along with how they achieved some of the stunts. Nick Cage mentions that he preferred this bike over the one he had in the first movie because it was just much easier to maneuver and made it easier for him to hit his marks. This exclusive also came with a steelbook when you pre-ordered from Best Buy. It's a pretty nice looking steelbook, and I don't remember any retailers at the time having some sort of bonus gift for pre-ordering. Nowadays you'll get a poster or something maybe. If you know of any cool pre-order bonus items from a retailer from back in the day, let me know in the comments below. This movie hasn't gotten any new release since 2012, and shortly after this movie was released, the rights to the character reverted back to Marvel, and the character is yet to debut in the MCU, unless you count the Robbie Reyes version that was in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show. Ryan Reynolds recently said that they thought of bringing Nick Cage back for Deadpool and Wolverine, but it never really came close to happening. I would have loved to have seen that. There's still hope that maybe he'll show up in Secret Wars. Thanks for watching this video, and let me know what your thoughts are about the Nick Cage Ghost Rider movies, and whether you think I'm crazy or not for liking the second movie. I also want to thank everyone who subscribed to the channel. I recently passed 100 subscribers, and it really means a lot to me. I didn't know whether my channel would ever find any sort of audience, and I'm even more motivated to put out more content. So I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, have a movie time.